In this video, you'll learn when and why to use different types of piano sounds in your live worship band. We'll cover the most commonly used different types of worship pianos and teach you the terminology that you need to use to be able to describe them. Then I'll give you some concrete examples in both MainStage and Ableton Live to get you well on your way to upgrading the sound of your pianos. Let's check it out. Hey guys, David from Sunday Sounds here, where our focus is making it easier for you to sound awesome on worship keys at your church. If you're a worship keys player, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because we put out new keys tutorials all the time to help you take your live rig to the next level. Today we're talking about worship piano sounds. This is the most commonly used type of sound for us as worship keys players, but it can also be one of the most difficult to get dialed in, and it's made more confusing by the wide variety of options there are out there. So we're going to be talking about different types of piano sounds today and demystifying them a little bit to help you understand what you really need to have, and then what might just be a nice extra or a different flavor or character on top of those sort of meat and potatoes piano sounds. Now, before we start talking about the specifics for live performance, when we talk about worship piano sounds in general, I think it's really important to remember that the songs that we're trying to play, the songs we're covering at our own churches, were probably recorded or produced in a studio environment. Even if it's a live recording, there's a really high likelihood that the piano sounds, the key sounds, were either captured as MIDI data during the live performance and then produced in the studio, or even more likely, probably just done in post or pre-production using high quality plugins, or in some cases, actually recording a really amazing sounding acoustic piano in a professional studio environment. So when we think about trying to emulate these piano sounds that we're hearing on these great modern worship records, we need to be realistic about the differences between those perfect environments where those piano sounds originated and the fact that we're going to be using these nitty-gritty in our churches on the weekends in imperfect rooms full of people, different configurations, different bands, week in and week out. So today we're going to be talking about how you can get closer to that production piano level of feel and quality, but staying true to the fact that you're using these pianos in a live worship context. So when we're using software as the heart of our worship keys rigs, we can't just focus on powerful sounds. We have to make sure that our computers can actually keep up with what we're asking them to do. So there's this balancing act of, can my computer do this reliably? Can it handle everything I'm asking it to do in terms of the quality of samples, the intensity of the plugin in terms of CPU resources, and then the fact that you also want to be able to play dynamically and expressively during live performances. That's the most important thing when it comes to a piano sound, is how does it feel to play? Is it an instrument where you can actually express yourself through the piano sound itself? So there's a law of diminishing returns here, right? Where in a live performance, you just don't hear the level of nuance that you hear in a studio recording environment. And that's really to our benefit because we don't necessarily need the massive amount of depth that you can get from incredible piano plugins or from recording a real piano in a studio context. But we want to make sure that we are able to express ourselves, that we are able to fit the right sonic space and sound real and authentic during the live performance. So the first place that many people start then is with the piano sounds that are included in the software that they're using as the brain of their keys rig. So for many people in our audience, that's using MainStage or Ableton Live's built-in piano sounds. And the truth is that you can get really pretty decent results with these piano sounds. MainStage's sound library comes with a few different flavors of grand piano samples. They're not incredibly detailed, they're not incredibly expressive, but they sound pretty good, especially if you add some effects to them and add some reverb and things like that. So here's MainStage's Steinway factory piano with a little bit of reverb added. And then immediately after that, I'm going to play the grand piano that's a part of Ableton Live. I'll play these back to back so you can hear the two of them. So if you're in a full band context and you bring these pianos from the factory libraries to the table, the audience is going to think that you sound good. These pianos translate pretty well in the mix. They can be a little difficult to get to cut through and sort of carry the right amount of weight. So I think really what most of the time you end up sacrificing if you're using these factory pianos is that there's a little bit less expressiveness, a little bit less dynamic range, and a lot less feel for you as the performer. And if you're like me, the more inspired I am by the instrument I'm playing, the better I play, the more expressive I am, the more into it I get, the more of myself I'm able to put into the final product. But in terms of the audience's response, you can totally get good results using these factory pianos that are part of MainStage and Ableton. Now, what a lot of folks do is choose that they don't want to use those factory sounds, so they start looking for third-party plugins. And this is a really, really fun discussion to have because there are amazing piano sample libraries and instruments out there. Some of our favorites are KeyScape by our friends at Spectrasonics, probably the most comprehensively detailed and nuanced piano sample library out there. It actually comes with a huge collection of different sampled keyboards, including an amazing grand piano, an amazing upright piano, and a wide range of other sounds. It's amazing. If you haven't checked it out, you should. But you're going to pay a good bit of money for that level of depth, that level of comprehensiveness and control. It's amazing for production environments, but for some folks in a live context, it might have more on tap than you need, or your computer might not quite be up to the task of delivering such a nuanced and deep instrument during a live performance. But there's tons of other great options out there. I'm a big fan of the Noire piano sample library from Native Instruments. There's also a company called Production Voices that has some amazing and really affordable piano sample libraries. I'm a big fan of their production and concert grand instruments. So we'll put links in the description to the ones I just mentioned. There's tons of other piano plugins out there. But of course, all of these piano plugins come at a cost, right? You have to buy the plugins separate from the software that you're using, and then figure out how to integrate them into your software setup. So piano plugins, there's tons and tons of them out there. We'd love to hear from you with what your favorite piano plugin is in the comments. So you can go factory sample library, or you can go the other direction and go for something completely custom, something third party. So now I want to talk to you about a new third option that we have worked up here at Sunday Sounds to give folks in MainStage and Ableton Live the ability to upgrade over the quality of the factory piano sounds without having to spend a lot of money in a third-party plugin. We've added 2 new custom sampled piano instruments to our Sunday Keys template, which is available in Ableton Live and MainStage formats. These custom sampled pianos are brand new in the 2021 edition of Sunday Keys. They work with inside of MainStage or Ableton Live, whichever format you need, and they give you a level of expressiveness and dynamic control and nuance and sound quality that you just can't get from the factory instruments in MainStage or Ableton Live. So we call these the Sunday Grand and the Sunday Upright, and they are awesome, and they're a huge upgrade over the factory sound library, but they're a part of our Sunday Keys template itself. So you don't have to invest hundreds of dollars in a separate piano plugin, especially if you're focused on a live performance environment and context. These pianos are built from custom samples of real piano instruments, and they give the audience an increase in sound quality and you as the performer a big upgrade in terms of expressiveness and dynamic control. So again, here's MainStage's stock Steinway piano. Now here's the Sunday Grand running inside of Sunday Keys for MainStage. Now here's the stock Ableton Live grand piano. And here's the Sunday Grand running in Sunday keys for Ableton Live. Now, neither MainStage or Ableton Live come with an upright piano sound. And that's a really common sound you hear in a lot of modern worship music. It's really popular with bands like Housefires, Maverick City Music, Bethel Music. It's really all over the place. And to not have that upright type of sound inside of MainStage or Ableton Live's factory sound libraries is a really big gap. So that's where the Sunday upright comes in. So if you're wanting a big upgrade over what Ableton Live or MainStage's built-in pianos can do, these new instruments inside of Sunday Keys are an awesome way to do it. And they're designed with live performance in mind, which means there's a lot of great nuance, a lot of depth, but it's not an incredibly CPU-intense experience to perform live with these pianos. So now that we've talked about some options for where you can get your piano sounds from, I want to take some time and talk about common types of worship piano sounds themselves, demystify them a little bit, help you identify some of the really common types of piano sounds. So when you're listening to a worship song, trying to figure out what piano sound would fit for this song, you're going to know the terminology and what to listen for to pick out the right type of piano. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning with the classic sort of worship piano sound. This is your go-to meat and potatoes worship piano sound. It's going to be a grand piano sound with a little bit of compression, nice full range, not super aggressive EQ, so you can really hear the full range of the instrument in the mix, and then probably a nice generous amount of sort of a bigger reverb with a good bit of space to it, like a hall reverb. So let me give you an example of a nice classic sort of just worship piano sound. All right, now let's talk about what we'll call the smashed piano sound. This is a much more aggressive style of piano that's all over modern worship music. To achieve this effect, you apply an aggressive amount of compression to the piano sound, specifically the initial attack of the instrument. This reduces the dynamic range of the piano and sweetens and elongates unnaturally the sustain or the tail of the piano. So it's really balanced, but it also has a squashed sort of feel. Oftentimes these sounds are a little bit brighter in terms of EQ, still often a grand piano sound, and then depending on how spacey you want it to feel, you might add a little bit of room reverb, or if you need it to feel giant, you could go for a big hall or church style of reverb. Let me give you an example of a smashed piano sound. Next, let's talk about the ambient piano sound. Now, this is sort of a catch-all generic term. There's a billion different types of ambient pianos, but if you wanted to settle on one sort of go-to ambient or spacey piano sound, you're probably going to start with a little bit of a darker piano sound, maybe with some of the highs rolled off in EQ. And the primary focus of this sort of ambient piano sound is actually the reverb itself. You want a really, really big reverb, nice and lush with a little bit of modulation on the reverb specifically to sort of make it swirl around and feel extra spacey. Now you can do this type of thing with a grand piano sound or an upright piano sound. It just depends on the style that you're going for. So let me give you an example of sort of a verby ambient grand piano. Next, let's talk about the intimate upright piano sound. This is a piano sound that's really direct. It feels like you're right next to the piano in the recording process itself. Really popular with bands like House Fires, Maverick City Music, Bethel Worship has used this kind of sound. It's all over the place, but especially in those more intimate sort of worship moments where the piano is probably the driving force of the song, whether it's starting the song off and carrying it all the way through or stepping in to fill space in a bridge. The point of the intimate upright sound is that you feel like there's very little space between you as the listener and the performer who's originally recording the song. So there's going to be reverb, but it's going to feel like it's coming from the room around you. You're still centered right next to, or maybe even in front of, playing the piano yourself. And because you're right there, you can hear all of the little extra nuance that comes from playing the instrument. You're not hearing the instrument with this sort of intimate upright piano sound. You're actually playing the instrument and then hearing it. That's how it feels to the listener. So you want to be able to hear all those little quirks, those little extra noises, those little extra nuances. And in terms of where the sound is coming from, it's supposed to sound like it's right here in front of you, coming straight at you, like you're the player of the instrument itself. Now, like I said a little while ago in the video, this sound is pretty hard to nail if you're using MainStage or Ableton Live's factory sounds, just because there are no upright piano samples that are a part of those factory libraries. So I'm going to use the Sunday Upright to give you a demonstration of what this feels like in a live worship context. Okay, I've got one more for you today. I'm going to call this the super bright piano lead. This is a sound that's even more aggressive than the smashed piano I talked about a few minutes ago. Here you absolutely crush the piano, just crush it with very, very aggressive compression, sometimes even to the point of actually clipping or distorting the initial signal a little bit. The purpose of this is to add extra power and a little bit of growl to that piano sound so that it actually makes sense as a lead instrument. It actually has some bite, almost like you'd expect from an electric guitar when it's playing a lead part in the right hand. So oftentimes you're using this for big lead parts in the right hand. You might apply an octave effect via MIDI, or you might actually be playing octaves in the right hand. Usually it's coupled with a good bit of reverb and oftentimes a rhythmic, maybe dotted eighth note delay or something as well. Lots of worship bands are using this type of sound. It's shown up on Jesus Culture records, Hillsong Worship records. It's pretty all over the place in terms of where you'll hear it pop up, but it's characterized by that incredibly crushed, sort of over-compressed piano sound coupled with bright, bright, bright tone. Usually, almost always, it's going to be a grand piano because then you can get all of that nice high end. It's not quite as dark as an upright sound. So let me show you this using the crushed grand patch from Sunday Keys. So those are a few of the most commonly heard types of worship piano sounds. Now, of course, we're just scratching the surface here. There are tons, a near infinite number of options, different piano plugins, different playing styles, different instruments themselves. But I think it's important to understand some of the basics and find out how to get some of those sounds for yourself, so then you can branch off into new territory at will with those sort of core sounds as your starting points. Now, we'll include links in the description to a few sound design tutorials that will help you get closer to some of the sounds that I've described in this video. For example, we'll put a link to our how to make a smashed piano tutorial for both MainStage and Ableton. We'll link that up in the description so you can check it out and learn more about how to get these types of sounds for yourself. If you want a done-for-you solution to get these worship piano sounds in a ready-to-play format, then we'll also include a link to our Sunday Keys template, which is now available for both Ableton Live and MainStage 3. It includes the custom Sunday Grand and Sunday Upright instruments that we've demoed in this video, along with a ton of other amazing sounds and features that will up the level of your Worship Keys rig. So be sure to check those out. All right, folks, remember, if you're a Worship Keys player, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We appreciate the support and we don't want you to miss our next video. Also, leave a comment if you've got a favorite piano sound or if you have any questions about the topic of today's video. We'd love to talk to you there. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.